think we're live. Today, sensuous. What does it mean? Does it apply in the workplace? Do we usually try to not go there? Eh, It's a interesting question to ask. And the reason we're talking about it today is that some people confuse or they may shut down senses. And when we shut down our senses, it impacts our ability to be present, to interact with people, to understand what's going on. Some people talk about having a second sense as to what's going to happen, or a feeling, or, my stomach was telling me, or I had that funny sensation. A lot of this comes because our senses are activated and are picking up cues. So, to start out with, I want to talk a little bit about the definition of sensuous. So, I have it right here for you. And sensuous, relating to or affecting the senses rather than the intellect. And I find it interesting that they separate the senses versus the intellect, because you can't really separate the two, because the information that you get from your senses feeds into your brain and you can make decisions. For example, you're driving down the street, you see an animal run in front of you, you slam on the brakes. That information came through your senses, visual. You made the decision based upon what you saw to take a certain action, slam on the brakes, so you didn't hit the dog. So they're tied together in ways that we don't necessarily think about them. And being able to actually look at, am I using my senses? Am I shutting my senses down? Where am I in this whole process? And what is it that I can do to open up my senses, or begin to feel more, see more, hear more? And a lot of it is we have just gotten out of the habit. So going back to when you were a newborn, everything you took in, you're wide open. You took in information about everything that's going on in the world. Your vision was starting to come in because it's not really there at first. You have oral sensations, right? Little kids, babies put everything in their mouth because that's how they develop a sense, because taste is one of the senses that is extremely heightened. They also figure out texture and beginning to learn what their own hands feel like, all of those things. So when you look at your senses, you can be visual, you can be auditory, you can be kinesthetic, which is the feeling piece of it, which I'm a lot kinesthetic. And with my background in dance, you can understand why that might be useful. As a dancer, you can, let's see, what did I say? Taste, sight, hearing, kinesthetic, and then auditory. So all of those. And my earbud just popped out. This is interesting. My second time using them, and they kind of have a life of their own, so to speak. So, well, hopefully this is working and they're still broadcasting. I'll find out in a little while, I guess. So back to the senses. So your five senses are things that you definitely want to figure out. Am I using them? Have I shut them down? Where am I in this whole process? And I'll give you one example of one of the senses that a lot of us have really forgotten about. And that's associated with food and eating, or basically our taste. And actually, there are a lot of other senses involved when you sit down to eat a meal. And I use eating a meal because it's really easy to do this and to figure out how it involves all of the senses, but also the ramifications of not doing that, which I'll talk about in a little while. So, when you're a little kid, you surely at some point in time walked into the house or walked by a restaurant and you could smell the food cooking, and it made your mouth water. And you started thinking about, having that good thing to eat. Maybe your tummy growled. You started getting a little bit excited about it. Then when, for example, you decided that you're going to order it, you might see a visual of it up there and say, oh, that's what I want. That's what I really want. I'm hungry for that. And then when the food comes, it's the way it's displayed as well. So for chefs and many people that do a lot of cooking talk about the presentation of food, and literally will spend thousands of dollars in order to get the right photograph to make the food look the way that they want, to make it look as appealing in print as it does in real life. Because that also stimulates the brain and starts that whole visual because you know what the food looks like when you get it. You can imagine or remember what it tastes like. You remember or imagine what it's going to feel like on your tongue. Is it something that just melts away? Is it something that's crunchy? Is it something that's in between the two? Maybe you crunch on the outside and it's soft on the inside, like I talked about bread the other day. The nice crusty loaf with a nice soft inner side, chewy kind of inner portion of it. But having that, so you've got the visual, you also can hear, for example, you might hear the way the food cuts, or you might hear the way the fork goes into the food, or you hear the way that you're chewing it, the sound, all of those sounds. So you really have everything associated with that food aside from the sense of taste. You've got the visual, you've got the way that it feels, you've got the way that it sounds. All of those things are really stimulating the whole process of eating. And it popped out again. I am on the smallest ones as well. So, what we're going to want to do is anytime you have an experience that pulls in all of the senses, it's a much richer experience. So, for example, if you sit in your car and you eat when you're driving from place to place, a lot of times you've consumed the whole thing and you don't even realize it. Or another example is when you've got a deadline or something and you're sitting down and there goes the other one, and you realize that, oh my God, I finished my project, but I also finished a 20-ounce bag of chips. And that's not exactly what we wanted to do. So I'm going to pop off. I'm going to pop back on because I'm not sure my earbuds are working the way that they should because they've been giving me the on off signal. And well, I think it's on. I'll continue. So being really able to, you didn't enjoy it. You didn't realize you ate the whole thing. And afterwards, you're like, what was that all about? I just ate a whole ton of stuff. I didn't really enjoy it. I don't really feel good now. Versus the setting where it's you take the time to enjoy the food. You know that you're going to get ready to eat. You see the table is set up. You see the silverware is there. You see the presentation as it's on the plate, the vivid colors that are there, the aroma that's associated with the food. And you begin to really partake and enjoy the sensation of eating because what you feed your body also feeds the rest of you. So, kind of like feed your body, feed your mind. So we want to be able to do that. The other thing about it is when you are focused on eating and you dedicate the time associated with eating, a lot of times you eat less because you're aware and can listen to when your body is telling you, hey, we're full. Rather than if you're stress eating or you're eating because you need to go from one place to another, you don't really enjoy it. It's not really that a lot of times that good a quality of food. Doesn't feed your body, doesn't feed your soul, but is something just to get you by. So I'm going to talk tomorrow about how this has an application in business because believe me, it does. But I wanted to set the stage a little bit and give you a little bit to start on thinking about now. And like I said, I will be seeing you tomorrow and we'll talk about the application of business, how the five senses are important in what you do. Basically, sensuousness in business. I look forward to seeing you then. Bye bye.